Our company's entry into the real estate business began in 1914 by my father, and since then there have been 3 additional generations of the Miller family in the real estate business, and look forward to an even greater presence in the real estate field during the next millennium.
Henry S. Miller celebrates 100 years, moving into its 2nd century as one of the premier and trusted businesses of Texas.
I'm so proud of our company, our family business, having survived for 100 years. That is such a rare thing.
A company built on traditions that stand the test of time.
3 words to me that most likely express the culture of the Henry S. Miller Company are responsibility, longevity, and sincerity.
The Henry S. Miller Company is the standard bearer for the values Texas is known for: integrity, trust, and an honest handshake.
You know, you preach integrity, you preach trust, you preach all this. Those that worked for Henry S. Miller Jr. and David Donosky and, you know, the Swearingens, the Fosters, and we were taught by someone that taught us about real estate but also taught us about life.
Starting in 1914, Henry Miller Sr. entered a business that would weather the good and bad times. With his business acumen, civic contributions, and incredible energy, he contributed to the very fabric of what was to become one of the world's greatest cities. By the 30s, Henry S. Miller Jr. had joined the business and helped it diversify into insurance. The father and son formed an official partnership after Henry Jr. returned from World War II. After the war ended, optimism in the city of Dallas was palpable and initiated a post-war boom. Henry S. Miller Jr. continued to lead with his father and began to draw great industry leaders to the firm. He became CEO of Henry S. Miller Company in 1960.
Maybe the most class individual I've ever known in terms of his integrity and the way he ran this company and the way he was very sensitive to people, not just as a broker, but as an individual.
My father was proud of his associates that built their own businesses up to the point that they could start their own companies. And he encouraged that and supported that and believed in them and stayed close and helpful to them if he could throughout their careers, whether it was with the Miller Company or not.
Vance C. Miller joined his father in the firm during 1959, and by 1962 the company posted record-breaking sales and its portfolio of services expanded to include property management, office and shopping center leasing, as well as industrial property leasing. In 1970, Vance became president and joined his father in developing the real estate landscape along with legendary industry leaders, as they ushered in an era of growing Henry S. Miller to national prominence.
My father, Henry S. Miller Jr., did have certain young men that he especially mentored, and probably starting with Herb Weitzman, who he loved dearly, Herbie, as my mom called him, Ken Hughes, and Roger Staubach.
It was in the 1970s that a young naval officer, a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, worked for the company in the off-season. Roger Staubach, who says he had 2 mentors in life, Tom Landry on the field and Henry S. Miller Jr. off.
So I have a telegram delivered to the hotel, and the hotel was from Mr. Miller. It said, "Roger, congratulations on winning the Super Bowl, and you've also been promoted to vice president."
During this iconic era, Vance continued to emerge as a natural leader.
He was a rainmaker. You can imagine flying a jet was something he had always dreamed and wanted to do. That's taking huge risk. He was not afraid to take a risk. He absolutely woke up every day ready to go and couldn't wait for the challenges.
In 1976, Vance Miller brokered the sale of the Pennzoil Place office building in Houston. The New York Times reported that it was the largest real estate transaction in history at the time. The company counts among its fraternity some of the great real estate and business leaders of Texas. It's no wonder they became one of the fastest growing real estate companies in the country.
You cannot go and do a deal anywhere in Dallas as a broker at this company and not run into someone that has not either done a deal with Miller or has not worked at Miller at some point, which is pretty phenomenal. One of my favorite stories, when I first started, I think, no matter where you work, everyone's a little bit intimidated by that boss down the hall. And one of my greatest moments was riding up and down the elevator with Vance. And I'd be in the elevator with him, and he would always be interested in what was going on, what deals are you working on, are you happy, is there anything I can do for you? And he was seemed a lot less of a boss than he did a friend. And it was really that caring attitude that permeates through this entire company.
The Miller Company is one of the great benefactors of Dallas and its arts community.
It's impossible to talk about Henry and Juanita Miller without talking about the arts in Dallas.
Henry and Juanita both had I think, a love affair with the arts. He was actively engaged in many of the key fundraising drives. I remember with the Meyerson, and then I was also aware of great problems that the opera had, and I think probably the opera wouldn't have survived without his leadership. They realized the potential of the city of Dallas, and through the arts was one aspect of helping Dallas really become great.
From Crystal Charity to Cattle Barons, giving back to the community is a central part of the Henry S. Miller legacy.
Juanita believed that too much is given, much is expected. And that doesn't necessarily mean writing a check or money, but it means giving back. And they believed that made a city great.
The Henry S. Miller Company survived the savings and loan crisis of the 80s and the subsequent recession years.
We stood at the window looking out the city of Dallas, and that was when he was stepping in as president of our company. And he looked out and he said, "I have a vision," I said, "for Dallas." And he said, "I believe that we can grow this company to be the largest commercial real estate company, not only in Dallas, but in Texas." And he said, "I'm going to do it."
Today, Henry S. Miller stands as one of the largest independent real estate brokerage services firms in Texas, with a tradition of excellence, honesty, and innovation for more than 100 years.
I think what makes Henry S. Miller a great place to work is the camaraderie. They're always open to listening to people and their ideas, their questions, their concerns.
What excites me most about the company going forward is the continuation that Henry Jr., Henry Sr., and Vance have provided for the first 100 years, and the family is intent on keeping that legacy going for the next 100.
Now the Henry S. Miller Company is poised to move into its second century.
100 years from now, the Miller Company will still be in the same position. They'll be revered nationally for their history, for their longevity, and their responsibility toward the real estate business.
With new leadership grounded in the traditions and values of one of the historic companies of Texas.
What I would say to Greg Miller is very likely, and maybe under his leadership, the greatest things are yet to come. So I wish him well.
I'm hopeful that 100 years from now, my great-grandchildren will be celebrating the 200-year anniversary of Henry S. Miller Company.
I'm proud of the heritage I've left you, and it must be worked on every day by each one of us to preserve it.
The Henry S. Miller Company, a vision of the future based on 100 years of excellence.
Henry S. Miller.
One family, one vision.
A century of excellence.
Henry S. Miller Company, a history worth repeating.